Good morning. It's Rebel Art and Power. Um, I just getting up, started writing some notes down, and started thinking, might as well. Thought of this phrase. I thought of this thing, this phrase. I thought, you know, by the end of the day, usually, I'm not really worth much. Um, they say nothing good gets accomplished after 4 o'clock in the afternoon. I don't know if that's true, but for me, it's true. Um, I was writing some things down and thought, you know, but if you wait till 4 o'clock, it's possible, you might get hit by rush hour traffic. You might not be. You're alive right now. If you've got something to say and if you've got something that you have to offer, get it out there. Go do it. Go get it done. So do what you can while you can do it. Um, if you got legs, go walk. You never know. Tomorrow you might be in a wheelchair. So I mean, not, and I don't mean that in a negative sense. I mean that in a positive sense. I mean that in a kind of like seize the day kind of way. So I was jotting down some notes and I was thinking, you know, especially recently, people have been talking about. I mean, it's never really gone away, but it's only gotten louder in recent years. The whole controversy about whether or not Kurt Cobain was murdered or not. Recently, this fellow named Joe Burns came out. You can check it out on good old YouTube here. Uh, the guy has obviously been through the mill with his drug addiction, so you can take his word for what it's worth or what you think it's worth. But he says he was there basically the night that he believes Kurt Cobain was murdered. And, he doesn't profess to say, hey, I was in the room, I saw it all happen, I saw it all go down. But he sets up a scenario um, that kind of lends itself to that conclusion. Uh, and once again, you could say, okay, well, this guy, whatever his motives, and you always got to question someone's motives. Everyone's got an angle. You know, what are, and once again, that's not to say that makes someone bad. You know, you got to have an angle. You got to have a reason for doing something. There's nothing wrong with that. But people have motives. Some of them are good, some of them are bad, some of them are neutral. So you could say, okay, is this Joe Burns guy? Is this guy just looking for fame? Or is he just looking for some money so he can get his next fix? So, I mean, those are fair questions to ask. I mean, all could be true at once. Once again, oh, like I've been thinking about recently. My favorite kind of saying. It's probably a rip off of somebody else, but thinking about somebody who beats his wife but reads to the blind. You know, things can be good and bad all in one package. It's possible that Joe Burns, this guy, is a junkie, is looking for notoriety and or money and or a next fix of heroin or whatever. Like I said, you can just take one look at him and see that he's struggling, or he's had a tremendous struggle, and I don't know his full story. So, but things can be all things can be a number of things all at once. Two things can be true at once, and two things that you think shouldn't be true or wouldn't be capable of being true are sometimes can be. So anyway, um, people get so passionate. It's just like politics. People get so passionate about one side or the other. Um, and it's probably always a mistake to get too wrapped up on one side or the other, and get too wed to one side or the other, and lose, lose your sense of judgment, your own sense of judgment, and go along with whatever that side also says, which you may or may not agree with. I think that is often the case with politics. You say, okay, well, I'm a Republican. Okay, well, the Republicans just did X, Y, Z, or and you don't agree with that, but you agree with all this other stuff that they did, and you're sworn to it. So you got to go along with this other stuff. Same thing with Democrats. You may not be. I don't know. People are people. So anyway, I digress again. But I think one of the things that is interesting about the Kurt Cobain, Courtney Love murder, suicide controversy is that I read that book Love and Murder or whatever that was written by those guys, and one of the things that I liked about it was that they went into it saying, we don't know, but there are a lot of questions that deserve to be answered. There are a lot of weird things in the Kurt Cobain case. There are a lot of strange things that deserve to be answered, and that's usually the case with anything. There's always mystery when someone dies unexpectedly. You think, well, there's always, what was going on. This doesn't add up or whatever. And they're hard answers to get because that person's no longer there. He's dead, to answer them or account for them, and people are left scrambling, trying to add up the pieces and make some kind of cogent story. And Kurt Cobain was someone involved in the drug world and the celebrity world, two worlds where, oftentimes you're trying to avoid the scrutiny of the public. You want to get high, probably in private, and when you're not on stage, you probably want your privacy. You don't want fans knocking down your door. So, especially when you're struggling and you don't want to have someone see you in. I don't know if you can hear that, but it's raining real hard outside. That's always nice. So there was a lot of mystery. There's a lot of mystery, and with good reason. There's a lot of unanswered questions. But one of the main things that I think gets lost because people get so passionate about one way or the other. I think it's always neutrality is always something to shoot for. Keeping an open mind that it could be one thing or the other. Kurt Cobain very well could have killed himself. Was he capable of killing himself? Absolutely. One of the things that I was writing down here, if he didn't kill himself, he did himself no favors by writing songs like I hate myself, I don't want to die, and then releasing it, going around, talking about blowing his head off, and buying shotguns and shotgun shells, and talking, you know, and showing his desperation to the world, you know, you know, and capitalizing on it. I mean, you know, so he did himself no favors, and if he didn't kill himself, he certainly invited death to come knocking. You know, he certainly let it in the house. That like, you have to invite don't you have to invite a vampire? A vampire can't come in your house unless you invite him in or something like that. He certainly let death in the door, even if he didn't kill himself. He certainly aided and abetted death to come get him. So I think that's something that needs to be acknowledged. You got all these people out there talking about justice for Kurt, justice for Kurt, justice for Kurt. It's not like Kurt Cobain was out there, running marathons and saving Ethiopian kids, and living life to its fullest, and he wasn't popping vitamins and saying, hey, let's he wasn't the embodiment of living life to its fullest in its right and proper way. If you look at his journals, he himself, he often uses this phrase, I'm a death rocker, So, you live by the sword, you die by the sword, kind of thing, is what I would say, one way or the other. Even if you didn't pull the trigger yourself, you aided it and abetted someone else pulling it for you. So, back to the point, was Kurt Cobain capable of killing himself? Absolutely. But then you also have to say, was Courtney Love capable of killing him? And I think you once again have to say, yes, that's possible. Did she do it? Once again, I'm not going to make some kind of definitive statement like that, but is she capable of murder? Given what some of the actions that you've seen her do, and even a cursory kind of overview of her career, the willfulness, the sheer willfulness of her, the sheer insanity sometimes that she seems to exude, the Machiavellian kind of precision and that she can somehow whimsically conjure and show you, says absolutely this is a person that if she wanted to commit murder, she could do it. So, once again, those are two things that, you have to say. It could be two things at once. Was Kurt Cobain capable of killing himself? Yes. Was he capable of being murdered by somebody by a wife who wanted his money? Yes. Both things are possible. Neither things are out of the realm of possibility. And for one side to laugh at the other and say, "Oh, that's just a ridiculous conspiracy theory," I think is kind of arrogant. If you look at some of the I mean, I'm not going to sit here and go over all the points that one side has versus the other. I mean, I can recall a few of them, and they say that Kurt Cobain had a tremendous amount of heroin in his bloodstream that would make him incapable of pulling a trigger. I don't know. Someone who's severely addicted, and never underestimate the power of a junkie or an addict. They can do tremendous things. I'm not convinced, even if you said his blood was 100% heroin. He had 100% level of morphine in his bloodstream. That still wouldn't tell me he couldn't pull a trigger. Anyone who's that foregone, you don't know. Yeah, probably not. Once again, it's about probability. Probably not. It's questionable. It opens questions. You say, okay, he probably couldn't have. Okay, so he had X amount of morphine in his body, which would have made him incapable of pulling a trigger. I've heard it debated both ways. It's very possible that he would have been incapacitated and unable to pull a trigger. Okay, that's possible. I also read something where they said that there's a number of things. You look at the suicide letter, and then that those two sets of handwriting, and you say, well, that's a little strange. And also the practice handwriting script that was found in Courtney Love's backpack at Rosemary Carroll's house. That opened some questions, and the coroner, who had a previous relationship with Courtney Love, that's a conflict of interest. That's a little strange too. These are valid questions. So it's not unreasonable to say, hey, something fishy, perhaps. I mean, was there, whenever there's a death, I think they always say, was there a motive? Was there a means? The motive was certainly there. The means was certainly there. So why not? Why is it so ridiculous to say that? It's certainly a possibility. It's the same thing with like the COVID thing. It's like, was it a lab leak or was it nature? It seems kind of conspicuous that nature would create this virus, a mile or so from the Wuhan laboratory where they're researching these things. Seems that's a little odd, huh? A wet market. That's where nature decided to make this terrible disease, just a few feet away from the place where they're researching these things. Wow, really? Seems a lot more likely that it was a lab leak to me. But, when people fight this stuff and they say, oh, you're just a conspiracy theorist. Okay, well, you at least have to say that there's an open question about it. Once again, I say, was Courtney Love capable of murder? Yeah. Did she do it? I don't know. Was Kurt Cobain capable of committing suicide? Yes. Did he do it? I don't know. You gotta have more questions. You gotta go into it further. I mean, and there are people doing it, and good for them. Follow it. Follow the money, or follow whatever it is you follow. Until you get the answer, if you're that hell-bent on it. And I don't think it's silly to question one way or the other. That either one of those scenarios could be true. So, you know, Kurt Cobain could have killed himself. Definitely. And Courtney Love could have done it, too. So, that's all I'm saying. And those are my ideas for the day. That's not a lot, is it? Are you going to go any further? I don't know. All right, let me go further. Let's see. I think, I mean, from what I know, Kurt Cobain did want to divorce Courtney Love. You know. But then also, there seems to be evidence that he went and he bought a shotgun before he left for LA. And then when he got back from LA after leaving Exodus Hospital, he bought bullets. I mean, that's pretty damning, man. Jeez. I mean, if he didn't kill himself, you know, he sure helped out that murder. You know, he sure didn't help himself. But you know, stranger things have happened. But you know, in the early morning of one of those of early April, he went and got bullets. I think, and he had bullets on him before he left to Exodus. So that's pretty damning. That, to me, and those bullets that he went out and bought once he returned to Seattle were found at the scene. I mean, that's a strong case for suicide. Of course, that practice sheet in Rosemary Carroll's and Courtney Love's backpack at Rosemary Carroll's house. That's a strong case for murder. I don't know. I mean, it's a toss-up. It's a toss-up. Justice for Kurt? I don't know if justice for Kurt is the right phrase. I think more investigation for Kurt, I think, is a fairer rallying cry. I think it deserves a little bit more investigation. And then you say, well, really does it? You know, this guy obviously, I mean, was walking a tightrope, you know, inviting death. I mean, he overdosed numerous times, could have died numerous times. You know, the incident in Rome where he OD'd, you know, very well could have been Courtney Love's first attempt to kill him. I'm completely satisfied that could have been a murder attempt. It could have been a suicide attempt. It could have been an accident. You know, it could have been any of those things. I'm completely comfortable. You know, show me more evidence is what I say. You know, but none of those three scenarios sound out of the realm of possibility to me. So, you know, I'm very comfortable saying that Courtney Love tried to kill him in Rome and it was unsuccessful. It's possible. You know, he OD'd on Rohypnol. It's the date rape drug. You know, he doesn't know what happened. and he's confused and he's not sure. He's in a coma. He may have suffered brain damage, and then he returns to Seattle and tries to go to rehab and comes back. It's the fact that he went out and bought that shotgun, and then he went out and he came back and bought shotgun shells. I mean, that's what I mean, how do you explain that? I mean, but how do you explain the other side? That's why I say that the whole idea of having somebody who isn't passionate one way or the other is probably the best person to judge this. The people that come into this with a hatred for Courtney Love, they're already biased. Or people that have this arrogant idea that they know that Kurt Cobain killed himself. You're already biased. You reek of it. Now, you really have to have someone that really doesn't have a dog in that fight and really doesn't really care one way or the other. And that's hard to do because anybody is human and you're going to have natural kind of tendencies. He may have liked that song, Smells Like Teen Spirit. Hey, that was a good song. She shouldn't have killed him. It's hard to be completely unbiased. There's no such thing. But, I mean, you can get closer to it than somebody who just flat out hates somebody or flat out loves somebody. Those are usually not the best people. People that come to something with a preconceived notion of what the outcome is are not the best people to go out and seek the facts, because they're going to fit the facts to fit their scenario that suits them. So, all I can say is that it's a case, because he is such an influential person, and there's another reason that it should be investigated more. There are a lot of copycat suicides of Kurt Cobain, and I can speak for myself that I was impacted by Kurt Cobain's death, and I think that when I was a young kid, 14 or 15 years old, that suicide seemed like maybe the right thing to do. It's silly and stupid. Tell me you didn't do something stupid or think something stupid when you were 13 or 14 years old. Or idolize someone so much so that you'd do anything that they said. So if your hero commits suicide, because I really like that song, Smells Like Teen Spirit. There are a lot of people who have committed suicide inspired by Kurt Cobain's suicide. So if he didn't commit suicide, for that reason alone, forget whether bring Courtney Love or Callie DeWitt or Dylan Carlson or whoever we think is involved. There is a purpose in kind of settling it, because I think I read something as recently as 2017 or 2018. In recent years, we're not just talking about the 90s. We're talking, because Kurt Cobain is still a force in the world today. That people are still idolizing him, and so there are people that are still romanticizing suicide because of Kurt Cobain. So for that reason alone, if for nothing else, it really should be investigated further. So I'm going to leave it there. I hope you guys have a good day. Till until next time, hang in there. It will get better. Have a good day.